All right, all you Oscar fans, I'm Paul Sheehan, executive editor of Gold Derby, and I'm here with our site founder, Tom O'Neill, and one of the senior editors, Daniel Montgomery. And we want to talk about Best Picture and particularly why Tom, who is the godfather of Oscar gurus, has just switched to Green Book. We need to know, Tom, I've got Black Panther, Daniel's got A Star is Born. What gives? Why are you doing this to us?
I'm not sure I have a really good answer to that. It's kind of like last night around 7 o'clock when I thought, I think I'll have pizza tonight. This is such a fascinating race. Yes, I would agree with Daniel that if the vote was held right now, A Star is Born would win. And I would agree with you, Paul, that Black Panther is really in this race. I think a scenario we could see take off is it'd win at the Critics' Choice Awards, or it win New York or LA, let's say, and then boom, it takes off. I can remember when Mad Max Fury Road swept the Critics' Awards, and then George Miller was considered to be out front ahead for DGA. Then you could see a path for winning Best Picture. It almost happened there. Well, I think that Black Panther is that potential right there. I think the movies that can win Best Picture are Star is Born, Black Panther. I think there's a path for Roma. I don't agree that it's as strong as other people say it is, but I believe it's possible. And what else is in the race there? But let's talk about Green Book. Green Book is the movie the Oscar voters discover, and they walk out of there, just elated on air. It's Slumdog Millionaire. It's Rocky. It's that Best Picture potential winner in this case that just has the audience on its feet cheering. Now, that said, so was La La Land compared to this little subdued, rather passive movie called Moonlight. So the big emotional uproar movie is the reason I'm going for Green Book, but it's fickle. It could change, but I think it's the momentum is actually heading in that path.
So Daniel, you've got Star is Born, and like we were just talking about the number of nominations. So Star is Born, you would think, is going to have far more nominations than Green Book, right?
It depends. I honestly think because both are, Star is Born is contemporary, so that's going to limit it in things like costumes. I'm not sure it's really a contender there, or maybe cinematography and these sorts of craft races that you're going to see films like First Man and The Favorite and all these other films really rack up. I'm not sure that's going to be those are going to be big numbers for A Star is Born or Green Book. So where A Star is Born could do really well is in the sound categories, in editing, which if you're a top Best Picture contender, you almost always get in for Best Editing, whether you have the showiest editing or not. I think,
of course.
Yeah, I think Green Book has also the potential to overperform in some of those categories too. It could get into sound because it's about a musician. It features a lot of music in it. It could get into costume designs because it's a period film. Even though it's more about male costumes, and those aren't usually as showy as female costumes, like the big poofy dresses of like The Favorite. It could get into editing also. I can see it getting into Best Director for Peter Farrelly if it takes off as much. I actually have him in my Best Director predictions. He, he's not a person you'd necessarily think of for Best Director, but neither was Adam McKay. Neither was the director of The Imitation Game, whose name is escaping me. But if the film is that popular, it's probably going to get in for Best Director.
Or even if it doesn't, Daniel, the scenarios there that we have driving Miss Daisy.
I'm just thinking that.
True, but we thought maybe that was with 3 Billboards last year. That's like, oh, the Best Director snub doesn't matter, and it turned out that it did matter. So I think it's still important to get that Best Director nomination. Even if you don't win it. You don't have to win it anymore. I think that there's been enough of a split between Best Picture and Best Director that you could easily win one without winning the other.
And the splits are happening now in a way that they hadn't historically because of the preferential ballot, only for Best Picture. And I guess that's why I have Black Panther winning, thinking that it'll be the most liked. It doesn't have to be beloved by a few. It has to be liked by a lot. And I feel like there's camps, and there's A Star is Born camp, and there's burgeoning camp for Green Book and certainly for The Favorite. And all those people, what would they rank? I could see them ranking Black Panther above their other competitors. So the Star is Born person ranks Black Panther ahead of The Favorite, and that helps right at that end when they're doing that final counting, that you just have to be really, really liked, but you don't have to be loved. But Tom, I think you would argue that Green Book is that kind of movie too.
It might be, but what I like about your theory with Black Panther is that really is the Moonlight theory. It's like, all right, well, whatever your choice is, Moonlight's your second one because it's like the poor little boy struggling in a cruel world. Yeah, Green Book could be too. The problem with Green Book is that it's just this very obvious, you know exactly what's going to happen throughout the whole thing. It's a very obvious paint by numbers story. It's kind of a obvious moral lesson too, you know, of racial bias and respecting all peoples and all this kind of stuff. So in a way, it doesn't have that pretension that you really kind of need to win Best Picture anymore. It doesn't have that snob appeal. However, what it has to make up for it is I'm in New York now. It's like the society dames in this town used to say, "That's our crowd, dearie," you know, which means that is an Academy movie. That is Vigo. That is their guy. That is Mahershala. So it's our movie.
But that Academy has changed radically in the last few years.
Yeah.
And so you talk about Driving Miss Daisy, and I'm sorry to remind you, Tom, that's almost 30 years ago.
I know.
I mean, but you know, Daniel was a wee lad at the time. So Daniel, I mean, for anyone that comes to these slugfests, we tag Daniel as sort of the cineast. Talk about the snob appeal. Daniel, give him a Czechoslovakian documentary about collective farming, and he's there.
Is there one of those in the Best Picture race? I'd love to see that.
So why A Star Is Born? I mean, it's yes, the critics loved it, but it's not sort of the critical darling. I mean, it's a big blockbuster. Why are you saying A Star Is Born over Roma, for instance?
I think A Star Is Born actually is kind of the critical darling. I wouldn't be that 88 score on Metacritic is huge. I wouldn't be surprised to see it win one of the majors at the Critics Awards, like New York or LA.
And
that's not
the artist won.
Lord of the Rings.
American Hustle won, which I mean, these are more populist films than we always see them go for. I don't see Roma just sweeping the Critics Awards, but even if Roma does, it still has that drawback of being a black and white foreign language film on Netflix, which, as much as the Academy is changing and we've seen really offbeat winners in the past few years, that's not an obvious path towards an Oscar. It could still do it. Of course, it has Alfonso Cuarón, who's hot off of Gravity, which didn't win Best Picture, so he's kind of got an IOU there. And it is beloved by critics, but I don't think it's the obvious choice. A Star Is Born has the critics. It has the box office. It's a huge hit, which never hurts. If Green Book is a box office hit, I think that might be what helps push it past A Star Is Born as frontrunner status in my mind. It has the prestige of Bradley Cooper, who's been nominated 4 times already and hasn't won. Lady Gaga doesn't have the snob appeal yet, but she seems to be getting it. She's already an Oscar nominee for songwriting. Right now on paper, it has everything going for it. And right now, I think Green Book is the only thing that I can see that has a real clear path to challenging it. And we'll see when it opens and how enthusiastically the critics greet it and how enthusiastically audiences greet it. It could be the sleeper that helps take down A Star Is Born, kind of like Moonlight took down La La Land.
And then I know we're going to talk separately about Best Actress, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up The Favorite. Because that seems to be the perfect marriage of sort of the old and new kind of Academy voter, because it's by a hip filmmaker, but it's a costume drama. It's female centric at a time that the Academy percentage wise has more women than ever in it. Tom, can you see that sort of have it on a road to victory?
Yes, I think that if the Critics Awards don't go for Roma, and I don't think they all will, I think at least one of them will, then it's The Favorite. The Favorite has the Daniel Montgomery cachet, a snob appeal that they want, and it's a real movie. I mean, it is just it throws you every 5 minutes with a new twist and turn and shocking dialogue and the rest of it. It's so raunchy, and it's certainly not what you expect a safe, sweet costume drama. But that said, I don't think it can win Best Picture. I think it can win in some of the Critics Awards. I think it's like Green Book. It's the movie that you go out of as a discovery, going, "Wow, I never thought I was gonna like that. What the hell is that?" But let's go back to something that Daniel just said about Bradley Cooper with A Star Is Born. I remember, I'm not sure if this rule still applies, but in the old days, I used to always, when in doubt about what will win Best Picture, I would invoke something that the great Peter Bart used to say all the time, the longtime editor-in-chief of Variety, who published my books on the Oscars, Emmys, Grammys, and stuff through the years.
And Critics Awards.
And Critics Awards.
The only book written on the Critics Awards is by Tom O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you. And I wrote them for Variety, and Peter did the intros. And so I worked with Peter on and off for those Variety supplements and stuff for many years. And I certainly admired him as a great a mind. And he was also, of course, on the studio side. He produced The Godfather on the studio side. And and he's been head of studios. And so anyway, I'm sure most of you know who Peter Bart is. But he used to say that to win Best Picture, you need a face behind the movie. You need there must be someone you think of when you with the movie. So that would be like Bradley Cooper here. It's not just a movie you're voting for. It is this person. And Bradley is just certainly come of age. He's had 3 Oscar nominations. His American Sniper, which he produced, made Best Picture, and he got nominated a couple times for acting. So it's kind of like his moment. But that said, I wonder about the showbiz jinx. You know, we used to say that no movie about show business can win Best Picture. My Star Is Born, the Judy version, wasn't even nominated for Best Picture and deserved to be. And your version, Paul, the Barbara version, which you concede didn't deserve to be nominated for Best Picture and wasn't, of course. But this does.
It's the Razzies. It deserved to be.
But this does deserve to be nominated. Let me finish the Hollywood jinx thing, though. So we had this whole period of historically at the Oscars where movies about Hollywood couldn't win Hollywood's top award. What the hell is that all about? And then The Artist did, of course. But then this is what makes me think we're back to the jinx in place, La La Land. So is there anything to this idea that Hollywood it's familiarity breeds contempt? If it's a movie about Hollywood, they don't give a damn. Is that possible?
Well, I wondered, because when you were talking about the face behind the film, and I can't help but think of Barry Jenkins, who I think, we were at an event a few weeks ago where he spoke about Beale Street, and he's such a good salesperson for his film, and he's so likable. And this film, I mean, it's got Regina King, but otherwise it's sort of newcomers. And Daniel, you wrote about Stephan James, maybe benefiting from being in Julia Roberts' new TV show. But something like, Beale Street's going to be nominated. Again, with that preferential ballot, I wonder, people like him so much, and they'll, I think, certainly respect the film.
He'll be nominated for Best Picture, but let's have Daniel answer this question. I don't think it can win. What's your view, Daniel?
I don't think it's going to win Best Picture. I think it can perform quite well. I think it could get Best Picture and Best Director nominations. I'm predicting Barry Jenkins to get in there. It's going to have some critical award support, I think. I think Regina King is the likeliest nominee for the film in terms of acting, but I don't think she's necessarily going to be the only one who could get in. I think, since
right now at Gold Derby too.
Yeah, she's the front runner to win. So it's kind of like has that Mahershala factor where it has the Best Picture momentum plus one acting win that's carrying it along also. But I also think supporting actor is kind of open. And so even though Stephan James is being campaigned as a lead, I think Brian Tyree Henry, who's kind of really hot right now, got an Emmy nomination, got a Tony nomination. He's in literally every movie that voters will be watching this fall, because he's also in Widows. He's in White Boy Rick, and he does a voice in the Spider-Man animated film that's coming up. So he's only in Beale Street for about 12 minutes. But honestly, obviously that doesn't stop Judi Dench or Viola Davis, his Widows co-star, was in Doubt for only a few minutes and got nominated for that. So the momentum could push multiple actors, I think, into the spotlight, plus screenplay, plus maybe cinematography. So I think it could do better than we're maybe giving it credit for.
And then
It's a very good movie. I don't mean to say that it can't win because it's not good enough. It's just, well, maybe I do mean to say that it's too quiet. I think it's a lovely movie. We all saw it together. And it was just wonderful. But on the other hand, I don't think it's exceptional enough to have that little something extra to call it the winner.
And then, so Daniel, you referenced Adam McKay a few minutes ago, and sort of with The Big Short and that one PGA, and that was kind of a surprise from the guy that made Anchorman, etc. So he's back with Vice, this film about Dick Cheney, Christian Bale, Oscar winner in it. That's sort of the X factor, right? I mean, people haven't seen it yet. It certainly would. I don't think it's not Daryl Zanuck's Wilson. It's not going to be this sort of Valentine to Dick Cheney, I don't think. I mean, do you think that kind of thing in today's political environment would be a way for the Oscars to sort of, live up to live down to all of Donald Trump's expectations of them?
I think it has a real shot at major nominations, and I think Christian Bale is a serious threat to win Best Actor. It's been almost a decade since he won for The Fighter, so and he's been consistently in respected films and nominated a couple other times. So he has that track record that I think they'd be happy to give him a second Oscar. And that could carry the film along as well, now that Adam McKay has the prestige of The Big Short that's carrying him along, and it has the political relevance, although that could help as well as hurt, because Academy members who are kind of tired of, like, they wake up to Donald Trump on Twitter all day. Do they want to vote for Dick Cheney on the big screen, even if it's not a flattering portrait? So it could go either way. That's definitely one of the X factors. It's hard to imagine a film even about such an unlikable person winning. We don't even darker films or more offbeat films like Moonlight and Spotlight, they do have a heroic core to them. So this kind of anti-hero film, we've seen that work on TV, but not as much in film. So that'll be interesting to see. But
the movie will feel very important and at a very urgent time in history right now. That often does lead to Best Picture or Oscar wins in general. So it has that going for it. Also, as I think you were implying a moment or two ago, Paul, that we've underestimated Adam McKay before. Big Short really did well at the Oscars. Mm-hmm. That some people, like Chris Tapley of Variety, predicted it would win. It came that close to winning. And I would agree that it was in the final stretch there and could have overtaken the winner. But Oscar voters in general don't like political films for Best Picture like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly, we're recording this at the beginning of November. I mean, this race is sort of constantly changing.
Movies we haven't seen too. There's Mary Poppins 2, for example, some that are still in the offing that we have to look at yet.
Yeah, well, we'll return again to talk about this. But I think we should wrap it up here. And I know we're going to do another one on I think we'd all agree the most exciting race right now, which is Best Actress. So look for that in our YouTube feed.